Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Arkham Files. I'm Dr. Henderson.
I'm Dr. Boose.
And today, amid the frigid temperatures inside of the asylum, we're going to discuss one of Batman's rogues again this week. Last week, we discussed the Riddler. This week, we discussed Mr. Freeze.
Very chilling character, if you will.
Was that supposed to be a pun?
Yeah. So episode's gonna be filled with puns.
Yes, the Iceman coming. So
let's go kick some ice real quick.
Here we go. So Mr. Freeze, or Dr. Victor Fries, as it is actually supposed to be said.
What? Is it really from? Oh my god. Okay.
No, it's not. It's Freeze.
Okay.
It's pronounced Freeze.
Freeze. Huh?
From what I remember hearing.
My man got bullied.
Yeah. He's a supervillain appearing in American comic books published by DC Comics, created by writer Dave Wood and artist Sheldon Moldoff. He first appeared in Batman number 121 in February of 1959 as the ice-based criminal Mr. Zero, but he was soon renamed Mr. Freeze. Years later, the character's origin story was revamped to match the one conceived by writer Paul Dini for Batman the Animated Series. Dr. Victor Freeze, or Fries, was a cryogenic expert in Gotham City who was caught in a laboratory mishap while attempting to cure his terminally ill wife, Nora. The accident drastically lowered his body temperature to sub-zero levels, forcing him to wear a cryogenic suit in order to survive. Freeze's main goal remains to find a cure for his wife's illness, though his methods often bring him into conflict with Batman. This depiction of Mr. Freeze has since endured as one of the superhero Batman's most recurring enemies. He belongs to the collective of adversaries that make up Batman's central rogues gallery. IGN's list of the top 100 comic book villains of all time ranked Mr. Freeze as number 67. The character has been portrayed in live action by George Sanders, Otto Preminger, and Eli Wallach in the Batman television series, by Arnold Schwarzenegger in the 1997 Batman and Robin, and by Nathan Darrow on the Fox crime series Gotham. He's also been voiced by Michael Ansara in the DC Animated Universe and by Maurice LaMarche in the Batman Arkham video game franchise, which is my favorite voice for Mr. Freeze.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, he's my favorite too.
Mm-hmm. Thankfully, there's not much about him on here, so we won't take too much time. But let's talk about him. So Mr. Freeze made his first appearance in Batman number 121 and was created by Dave Wood, Sheldon Moldoff, and Bob Kane. From the first time of his first appearance in 1959, the character was portrayed as one of many joke villains cast as stock enemies of Batman. He was originally called Mr. Zero in the comics, but the producers of the 1960s Batman television series renamed him Mr. Freeze and portrayed Batman addressing him as Dr. Art Chivel, and the name quickly carried over to the comic books. In the pre-crisis continuity, it explained that Mr. Freeze is a rogue scientist who's designed for an ice gun backfires when he inadvertently spills cryogenic chemicals on himself, resulting in him needing sub-zero temperatures to survive.
Okay.
Originally called Mr. Zero, he was renamed and popularized for the 1960s Batman television series, in which he was played by three different actors, which was George Sanders, Otto Preminger, and Eli Wallach. Nearly 30 years later, a television adaptation of Batman revitalized him once again in Batman the Animated Series, which was retold Mr. Freeze's origins in Heart of Ice, an episode by writer Paul Dini. The episode introduced his terminally ill, cryogenically frozen wife, Nora, which explained his obsession with ice and needed to build a criminal empire to raise research funds. The more complex, tragic character was enthusiastically accepted by fans and has become the standard portrayal for the character in most forms of media, including the comic book series itself, which previously had the character casually killed off by the Joker. Freeze was resurrected in the comic after the episode aired. The episode was seen as groundbreaking for his Saturday morning cartoon and helped set the tone for the rest of the series. That story was also made canon in the comics and has been the character's official origin in almost every incarnation of Batman until September 2011, when the New 52 rebooted DC's continuity. Elements of this origin story were incorporated into the 1997 film Batman and Robin, in which he was portrayed by Arnold Schwarzenegger.
The best, if you ask me.
The Iceman.
The Iceman. Yes.
What killed the dinosaurs? The Ice Age. Hey, Batman. Chill.
Freeze well. I like the which one is it? Oh crap. I'm wondering he should play Freeze in the Batman series. I like the idea of Woody Harrelson a lot.
Giancarlo Esposito.
I'm into that as well. Who knows? Who knows? I don't care.
Into Mr. Freeze in general. All right.
Yeah, anyone could be Freeze.
All right, let's talk about the pre-crisis moments of Freeze. A scientist whose name remains unknown adopted the criminal identity of Mr. Zero after he suffered an unfortunate accident that changed his what? I assume this says physiology. I'm not sure. Wait, me to sound professional over here, but I can't pronounce a word.
Cool.
Forcing him to live in environments below zero temperatures. He was experimenting with a concentrated freezing solution. In order to create an ice gun, he was accidentally exposed to the solution. In order to be able to go out to the normal environment, Zero created an air-conditioned suit, which helped him remain in cold temperatures, even in hot climates. Using this equipment, Zero gathered a small gang and started a crime spree in Gotham, stealing mainly diamonds and other precious jewels. Mr. Zero was eventually confronted by the local vigilantes Batman and Robin, who were unable to stop Zero as they couldn't stand against his cold weapons. The dynamic duo was eventually captured by Zero and brought to a secret cold hideout near the mountains. Trapped in blocks of ice, Batman and Robin learned Zero's plan to steal a large collection of gems and using their cages as weapons. Batman broke a steam pipe in Zero's hideout, causing steam to fill the entire place, melting the ice away and apparently curing Zero from his ailment. After this, Batman and Robin were able to capture the whole gang and brought Zero to the authorities. After years of inactivity, Zero returned to crime. But this time, he changed his alias to Mr. Freeze. His condition had apparently returned, and he was forced to remain in cold temperatures once again. In the second exploit, Freeze redesigned his cryosuit and also improved his cryothermal gun. With the new gang, he started a new series of crimes and stole valuable pieces of art. Similar to his first criminal activities, Freeze was eventually stopped by Batman and Robin. And Landon, also feel free to stop me at any point.
Stop. Okay.
I am stopped.
Continue.
Thank you. Long after this, Freeze became a part of a mock criminal trial, after which he changed his cryosuit for one that allowed him more mobility. Freeze eventually fell in love with a woman called Hildy. And in order to slow her aging process, Freeze set out to recreate the accident that transformed him. Using wealthy people in Gotham as test subjects, Freeze experimented on them, but all the efforts resulted in failure, and the victims were turned into frozen zombies, who followed Freeze's command. His new crimes alerted the police and Batman, who confronted Freeze and was only able to defeat him when Hildy showed her true intentions and betrayed Freeze, only to be encased in solid ice when her plan backfired. Freeze's next plan consisted of freezing Gotham City by removing all the heat and transporting the energy to the neighboring city of Metropolis. Freeze was unable to accomplish his goal as he was stopped by Batman and Superman. During one last attempt to freeze Gotham entirely, Mr. Freeze created a large ice cannon. After robbing a bank, Freeze was confronted by Batman and the new Robin, who managed to defeat him and with help from Vicky Vale and Julia Pennyworth, who Freeze had previously captured. And that was the end of the pre-crisis. So, obviously pre-crisis, as in pre-crisis on Infinite Earths.
Yeah.
But we're going to move on to the post-crisis real quick. Following the Crisis rebooting the history of the DC universe, Mr. Freeze was revamped using a history similar to the one created by Paul Dini. Dr. Victor Freeze, Ph.D., surname pronounced Freeze in most cases, was a brilliant cryogenicist. As a child, he was fascinated with cryonic preservation, so he begins freezing animals. His parents are horrified by his hobby and send him to a strict boarding school where he is miserable and feels detached from humanity. In college, he meets a woman named Nora, who he ultimately marries. Nora contracts a fatal illness 1.5 years after Bruce Wayne becomes Batman, so Freeze begins developing a freeze ray for GothCorp in order to preserve her in suspended animation until the cure can be found. Freeze's boss, Ferris Boyle, decides to tell the mob about the gun, leading Batman to create a team of specialists to help him do his job better. As Freeze puts Nora in the suspended animation, Boyle interrupts and tampers with the experiment, resulting in an explosion that kills Nora. Freeze survives, but the chemicals in the freeze ray lower his body temperature to the point that he must wear a cryogenic suit in order to survive. He swears revenge on those responsible for the death of his wife, whom he talks to often, and becomes Mr. Freeze, the first superpowered villain whom Batman faces in this continuity. Eventually, Batman's operatives find Freeze, who shoots one of them with his freeze gun, but Batman eventually apprehends him. Initially locked in Arkham Asylum, Freeze was eventually transferred to the Gotham State Penitentiary, from where he escaped and attempted to steal technology from Star Labs until he was stopped and returned to prison by Batman. Again, this guy's very unlucky, just like the Riddler.
Yeah, very. I don't know. I think Riddler is more stupid.
Yeah, but this guy keeps he's like, oh, I'm going to go steal something. And then Batman immediately stops him. He's like, oh, I'm just going to do it again.
Yeah.
All right, let's continue. Freeze's crimes tend to involve freezing everyone and everything that he encounters, so he never forges alliances with the other criminals in Gotham, preferring to work alone. On rare occasions, he has worked with another member of Batman's Rogues Gallery, usually as an enforcer for Gotham's mob bosses, such as the Penguin during his reign, or Black Mask during the return of Jason Todd. In one of his notable team-ups, Freeze constructs a cryogenic machine for Hush so that Hush might take revenge on Batman. Freeze's equipment allowing Hush to preserve Catwoman's surgically removed heart to use as a means of threatening her life. After Batman's death, most of the Arkham inmates were freed by a new Black Mask. Freeze was among them, and he started working on a project called Ice X Protocol when the GCPD tried to capture him. He stunned them with his gun and captured Gordon, taking him to a secret lair. Gordon managed to break free and defeat Freeze by causing an explosion that weakened him. After his capture, Freeze was taken to Iron Heights prison. During this time with the Secret Society's supervillains, he fashions a Sub-Zero machine from Nyssa Al Ghul in exchange for the use of her Lazarus Pit. He attempts to restore Nora's life without waiting for the adjusting needed in the pool chemicals. Apologies. She returns to life as the twisted Lazara and escapes. She blames her husband for her plight, and she estranges herself from him. And that was the post-crisis.
Huh?
We've got 2 sections left. New 52. In September of 2011, the New 52 rebooted DC's continuity. In this new timeline, during the Night of the Owls crossover, the Court of Owls sends assassins known as Talons to kill 40 of the most important citizens of Gotham, including Mr. Freeze. Now, the Night of the Owls is a comic series. Len and I do know that you just read the first volume in this series.
Yes.
And Night of the Owls is the second volume.
Okay.
But this is what this is. But the Court of Owls sends assassins known as Talons to kill 40 of the most important citizens of Gotham, including Mr. Freeze. The Red Hood, Starfire, and Arsenal choose to save him and subsequently remand him into Batgirl's custody. That's happening. I think this might not be the second volume. The second volume starts the Night of the Owls, but it's continued in random comic books throughout DC.
Mm-hmm.
Batman Annual Volume 2, Number 1 introduces a new origin for Mr. Freeze. Here, Victor Freeze's fascination with cryonics began when he was a boy and his mother fell through the ice of a frozen lake, which it does show in the Snyder comic books. The ice was able to keep her preserved long enough for help to arrive, thus sparking his lifelong obsession with the cold. It is later revealed that the accident left Freeze's mother in constant pain, and Freeze ended her suffering by pushing her into the same frozen lake. In this new origin, Nora was never Freeze's wife. Her name was Nora Fields, a woman born in 1934. When Nora was 23, she was diagnosed with incurable heart disease, so her family placed her in cryogenic stasis, hoping that a cure would be found in the future. Freeze, having written his doctoral thesis on Nora, took on a position as a cryogenic researcher and technician at Wayne Enterprises, the facility that housed Nora's body. Eventually, he fell in love with Nora and became dedicated to finding a reliable method for slowly thawing cryogenic subjects. However, Bruce Wayne ordered the project to be shut down as he began to feel uncomfortable with Freeze's obsession with Nora. Furious, Freeze hurled a chair at Wayne, who dodged the attack. The chair smashed into an array of cryonic chemical tanks, the contents of which sprayed onto Freeze and transformed him into Mr. Freeze.
Well, see, I don't like it when Freeze is made to be. I don't know. I don't like when Nora's like crazy as well. You know what I'm saying? Like, and Freeze, yes, you can argue is crazy, which I can get down with. I like the idea of him. It's just some guy who's kind of just down on his luck. You know what I'm saying?
That's Riddler.
It's like Joker, like one bad day or whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
Or not like his wife's dying and he's willing to do anything just to make her be alive. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. But that was that origin story I was telling you about recently with how it was Nora Fields. It was a woman that was born in 1934, and they tried to freeze her. Her family freezed her to see if they could come up with a cure for her illness. And when he goes to work at Wayne Enterprises, he gets so fascinated with her to the point where he's obsessed.
Yeah, I don't like that. I don't like that at all. I like it where it's actually his wife. I'm
50-50. I like both.
It's the most romantic thing ever. So
this is the most psychopathic thing ever, which is perfect for Batman's villains.
Oh my god, shut up.
It is.
Yeah, but some of them have human qualities to them, Darian.
No, they don't.
Yes, they do.
Tell me what's human about any of those villains. Besides Catwoman.
Don't get me started on the Batman's Joker. That's the most human you can get.
All right, the Court of Owls uses Freeze's cryogenic thaw formula to revive their Talons, and then they try to kill him. Freeze survives, but is captured by the Red Hood and sent to Arkham Asylum. He escapes shortly afterward and rearms himself with the Penguin's help. Freeze decides to kill Bruce Wayne and takes Nora, whom he believes to be his wife, so that they can leave Gotham City behind forever. Infiltrating Wayne Enterprises, Freeze has a brief fight with Nightwing and Robin, but he subdues them. Then Freeze goes to the penthouse, where he finds Batman and the frozen Nora. Batman defeats Mr. Freeze by injecting his suit with the thawing formula, which he had intended to use to revive Nora from suspended animation. During the Forever Evil storyline, Mr. Freeze appears as a member of the Secret Society of Supervillains at the time when the crime syndicate arrived from their world. The Scarecrow later visits Mr. Freeze to let him know of the war going on at Blackgate Penitentiary. The Man-Bats are able to bring the remaining talons to Mr. Freeze after Man-Bat and Scarecrow steal them from Blackgate. Mr. Freeze and Clayface later encounter the Rogues when they land in their territory. Mr. Freeze tells Mirror Master II if he's not interested in capitalizing on the bounty on their heads, only to use Weather Wizard to create optimal conditions for him to freeze Gotham. As the Rogues are fighting the two, Black Mask, alongside his False Face Society, arrives to capture the Rogues to receive the bounty. And now these are the Rogues, as in like the group called the Rogues from the Flash comics, which is like Captain Cold, Heatwave, Mirror Master, Weather Wizard, and I think and Golden Glider. I think.
Okay.
And that was the end of the New 52. And on to the final one, the DC Rebirth. In the Watchmen sequel, Doomsday Clock, Mr. Freeze is among the villains that attend the underground meeting held by Riddler that talks about the Superman theory. When Comedian crashes the meeting, Mr. Freeze's helmet is punctured by a bullet shot by an unseen combatant. In the Ends of the Earth story arc of All-Star Batman, Freeze has awoken many people that have been held in cryogenic stasis, using them as an army to steal resources for his research to cure his wife Nora, himself, and all of these people, and plans to release deadly bacteria held in one of the world's oldest ice cores to make a new world. But Batman has injected himself with a cold-resistant virus that becomes airborne when his skin is exposed and is able to kill the spores. Several years later, due to the events of the Year of the Villain, Lex Luthor gives Mr. Freeze a vial that would cure and furthermore revive his frozen wife. Freeze had to kidnap several women who matched his wife's characteristics in both mental and physical states, going as far as modifying their DNA to hers in order to experiment with the vial before reviving his wife. In the end, it worked, and his wife came back to life cured. She soon took up the name Mrs. Freeze. And that is the end of his story.
So many stories. Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm just old fashioned. I like the idea of.
So apparently, in Smallville season 11, the comic book series, Mr. Freeze is in that.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll just watch those episodes of Smallville.
No, he's not in. It's not in the show Smallville. It's in the comic book series.
Okay, I'll just get those issues then, and that's it.
Good luck. They're expensive.
Not knowing what's going on.
They're very expensive.
It'll be worth it. Something I saw today, by the way, while I was at McKay's, this was the thing. Apparently, there are Superman Returns prequel comics.
That's interesting.
I almost bought some, but
I'm going to talk about the worst things that Mr. Freeze has done. So, would you agree that Mr. Freeze is kind of crazy?
Yeah. He's crazy, too, of how far he'll go with stuff. Like, because I think what he's trying to do is not a wrong thing, but, like, the lengths he'll go to do it is wrong. Like, hurting people and everything, yeah. You know? So.
All right. So, let's talk about the top 10 worst things Mr. Freeze has done. He has froze animals. During his experiments, where he would encase whatever small creatures he could find, like butterflies or squirrels, in a block of ice. He would start by freezing a small part of the animal to see how it was affected. In his adult life, he admitted to the Penguin that his most vulnerable subjects were birds, noting how even a tiny bit of frostbite would make his subjects helpless. When his parents found out, they were horrified, and they sent him into therapy in hopes it would fix him. He continues to be interested in cryogenics, so his parents shipped him off to a strict boarding school to discourage individualism. And, it's kind of put him on a dark path there with animal cruelty. He created a cryonic device to freeze Catwoman's heart. I did read that. He surgically removed... Hush captured Catwoman and surgically removed her heart. Freeze supplied him with a cryogenic preservation device. The apparatus slowed the beating of Selina's heart, allowing it to be kept on ice. He killed armed guards with a glass of water. Let me read about this. So Mr. Freeze has demonstrated his resourcefulness on several occasions. An infamous example occurred during a breakout at Arkham Asylum. Victor killed his therapist, broke out of his cell, and reversed the temperature controls within the prison. Gaining control of the temperature allowed him to walk freely or without his suit. In the main hall, Freeze was surrounded by guards. Instead of surrendering, he drank a glass of water and sprayed it onto his opponents. The sub-zero climate froze them solid, giving Victor the opportunity to escape.
Okay.
He helped the Court of Owls revive the Talons. I'm not going to read about that. He's got an obsessive personality. He's obsessed with his wife. And he's obsessed with his wife, and in the New 52 reboot, he's obsessed with the woman that is not his wife. He pushed his mother into a frozen lake. That did happen. To end her suffering, he watched her suffer more. He turned his entire family into icicles. He said Freeze received regular counseling sessions from a psychiatrist who enjoyed teasing him. During one session, the doctor mentioned that Victor's father had remarried and had a new family. Eager to make contact, Freeze writes numerous letters to his dad that are never answered. When the crime syndicate attack Arkham, Freeze finds himself a moment to escape. He goes in search of his long-lost family, wanting to explain what had happened to him. Eventually, Freeze tracks them down and tells them the story of how Batman shattered his dream of leaving Gotham with Nora. The creepiest thing about the sequence is that Victor talks to the frozen statues of his father's new family. He goes out of his way to set them up around a dining table. The woman toasts him with a glass of wine while the children are stuck in eating positions. The story ends with Freeze claiming his family would never leave him again. Talk about abandonment issues. He designed a Sub-Zero machine for the secret society of supervillains. I talked about that. He unleashed Lazara, which is Nissa Al Ghul. I did talk about that as well. And he caused a new ice age. And what killed the dinosaurs? The Ice Age.
We need more Arnold and Batman.
Yes.
That's for you, definitely.
So it says, Mr. Freeze's most diabolical plan to date involved him trying to create a frozen world in the pages of All-Star Batman Ends of the Earth. In the story, Freeze awakens an army of people who have been suspended in animation. He sent them to gather resources for his research into curing Nora's condition and his own. At the same time, he planned on releasing bacteria that was held within an ancient ice core. Freeze had grown wary of seeing humans scrabble about on a dying planet. He had refused to let Nora awaken to it, so he desired to give her a more peaceful existence. Once unleashed, the virus would spread to every living thing and gradually turn the globe into a frozen wasteland. Batman stopped Freeze's plan by injecting himself with a cold-resistant antidote. When his skin was exposed to the virus spores, it stopped them from spreading. And that is Mr. Freeze's top 10 worst things, and that is the end of his case file. It's a very short episode today.
Yeah, very short. Well, Mr. Freeze is my favorite Batman villain. I think I don't think you could deny he is.
I like all Batman villains, but if I had to pick favorite, it'd be Riddler. But
yeah, well,
Mad Hatter's a close second for Riddler.
Would you disagree with me if I said Mr. Freeze is the best looking, like art style wise?
Sometimes.
Well, who would you say is above him?
Like best looking. Are you talking about like this character design in general?
Character design, yeah. Like every time you see it, like you could do some pretty menacing things with it, like with the red eyes and all that.
Well, yeah, I can agree with that. I also think that, and now maybe I'm being a little biased, but Professor Pig. Like the simple design of him, they can really make him look creepy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like it's less creepy, more like
Mad Hatter also. Like
more like I don't know how to describe it, but like I see Mr. Freeze, I think a freaking like Nazi. Like I'm like, bro, this guy. Yeah, I know it doesn't make sense, but like I don't know how to explain it. It's all I see it. I'm like, whoa, you know.
Yes.
Like this guy's evil.
Yeah, that is the end of the case file and everything we have to talk about with Mr. Freeze. All right, and so I guess we can get ready to end this off.
Yes.
All right. So thank you all for joining us this week for the Arkham Files. Next week, we're going to dive into the case file of the facilitator of fear himself, the Scarecrow. Which will be a very fun episode. I'm excited about that.
Yes, very fun.
But
probably my second favorite. Really.
If you guys would like to hear more about different villains, go check out our episodes about the Joker, Two-Face, Riddler, and now you just listened to this. And next week, we'll be doing the Scarecrow.
Awesome.
So thank you all so much for joining us this week, and we'll catch you in the next one. Goodbye, ladies and gentlemen.
Goodbye.